Hello and welcome to AFL.com.au. I'm Luke Darcy with a complete wrap of all the news, views and opinions from round 2 of the AFL season. Alongside me, the number 1 newsbreaker in football, Darcy Barrett, is with me, as he will be each and every Monday. Welcome to you, Damo.
G'day, Darcy. It was a really good weekend and a really bad weekend with the footy, wasn't it?
There were some blowouts, weren't they? But Easter Monday yesterday, the Cats and the Hawks was an absolute cracker. Geelong now 8 wins in a row over the Hawks since 2008, where they won the grand final. Is there some sort of psychological edge, Damo, that the Cats have got over the Hawks?
Well, there appears to be, doesn't there? But maybe they're just a whole lot better, Das. I mean, 8 in a row suggests they are. The one blip on that record they've got since 2007, when they've been the dominant team of the competition, was the grand final. Now, if you're a Hawks supporter, you probably caught what's happened to you since that point. You got a grand final out of that era yourselves. I don't know, your take? I think they're just playing better.
A lot's been made of Jeff Kenneth's comments at an ABC forum going back, suggesting the opposite, that it was the Hawthorn side that had a psychological advantage. Since then, we've heard players say, we've made a pact never ever to lose against Hawthorn. It's one thing to be able to do that. You've got to be good enough to back it up. And it was just their class players. We were both at the MCG yesterday, and Chapman and Searle was just unbelievable. Jimmy Bartell's performance, sensational. So to have the guns to be able to do it makes a fairly big difference.
Yeah, look, maybe the psychological thing did kick in when Buddy Franklin missed a couple of shots he could have got. But I mean, he's done that throughout his career, hasn't he? I mean, Bartell kicks those goals. Some people at Hawthorn don't. I still think, though, they're just simply a whole lot better.
I want to move on, Damo, to what feels like a bigger gap than we've seen before between the top 6 sides in the competition and the bottom 6. Is it too unfair to have some teams play the Greater Western Sydney twice and also the Gold Coast twice? So we take a look, Adelaide and North Melbourne are 2 teams that have got that massive advantage, it seems, of playing the 2 new franchise teams, Melbourne, Sydney, Gold Coast, Brisbane and St Kilda. The one that interests me, and we're trying to dissect this, and a lot of debate yesterday, is the Adelaide Crows draw. They've got off to a flying start. They've got 2 wins already. They play the Gold Coast, Port Adelaide, who finished 16th last year, GWS twice. They run home Brisbane, Melbourne and Richmond 15th, 13th and 12th, plus their 12 home games at Adium Stadium. We've had people that we know very well, Damo, saying Adelaide need to get the plague. That's the only way they're not going to make the top 8.
Well, just on that graphic alone, they can't miss the 8, can they? I mean, can you see them missing 8 on the back of that? It's
living certainties, unless something untoward happens. They win half their games at AAMI Stadium. The percentage boost they'll get from the 2 franchise clubs as well. I mean, you think they're going to have massive wins in those 4 games. Port Adelaide's always a different game. They play at AAMI Stadium, but I mean, you're right. The 18 matches into 18 teams playing 22 matches. It's never going to be fair. So it is what it is. But we saw on the weekend, North really got hold of GWS. Sydney couldn't quite do that in round 1. Other clubs are going to get hold of them very, very regularly. And you do feel for clubs like an Essendon and Richmond and even a St Kilda who don't have those multiple games against those low-league clubs. They're going to be pushing for the 8 at some stage, but it will come down to how many times you've played these 2 weak clubs. Always been inequities in the draw. That's not going to change in the near future, but perhaps the contrast at the moment, while we've got 2 new teams, greater than ever. The story that just keeps unfolding, Dame, I want to talk to you about is the Melbourne Football Club and their, I suppose, dramas in the first 2 weeks. Mark Neild, I genuinely feel for him at the moment. I've never seen a first-up coach have more issues thrown at him in 2 weeks of football. Having said that, have the Melbourne Football Club handled all these situations as well as you would have hoped?
Not all of them does. There were so many aspects to what's happened this year that have been uncontrollable from Melbourne's perspective. But there's a key one last week, which Mark Neild himself took control of. Now, on Monday night, on a nationally broadcast live TV program, he demanded 2 things of the AFL. One, an apology, and one for the AFL to get to the bottom of what was being said about his treatment of Indigenous players. 36 hours later, he chose not to want the second plank of those 2 requests. Now, he can't have it both ways. He can't demand what he did in the way he did and then to back off when it was told to him by the AFL that it was his own player, Aaron Davey, who was the source of what was being said. Now, that's in dispute. Melbourne disputes that, Aaron Davey disputes that, but he could have controlled that dust. This issue had been looked at by media and was effectively dead by the way the media approaches things. And look, it appeared on a blog, but it wasn't there for long and had been removed. That was what he could have controlled, and I think that really made his week as bad as it was.
Part 2 of that, the follow-up was a few days later. The Melbourne major sponsor, Energy Watch, have an extraordinary tirade from the CEO, which is disgraceful and unbelievable to think in modern times that we have people that are prepared to go on record and say those things. How did that one play out in your mind as well?
Yeah, well, that is largely one of those uncontrollable things. Having said that, the Bulldogs are on record as saying that they also had some dealings with Energy Watch at the time, chose not to go down that path. Richmond, we can also tell you, looked at it. They were approached by Energy Watch. They did have other options on the table. As we know, they didn't go down that path. You feel for Melbourne on that one, but again, just maybe scratching beneath the surface a little bit more than they had. It may have actually eliminated a little bit anyway with what happened.
Also been a sensitive time for the AFL in their Indigenous community. Relations manager Jason Misford has put his hand up as the source of the leak for Mark Neeld. Did the AFL get it right in their handling of Jason Misford?
They've been wobbly on this in the way they've presented to the public. That's just my take on it. I've been covering AFL issues now for a fair while. I haven't seen them look as unsure about themselves as they did in the past week, going back to 2007 when John Howard and Peter Costello took them on the drugs debate. Now, they got thrown out of government, as it turned out, and that issue was averted. But to me, it just hasn't been the normal, really sure and convincing AFL. Whatever they want to do about it, Darcy, they cannot get the public to be convinced that they had nothing to do with the Rendell issue, and the public is still lining up the Rendell issue with the Mifsud one. And look, I get what everyone's saying about it. Rendell resigned. We get that. But they just haven't been sure in their handling.
The AFL have got to put their hand up on another one from the weekend, Damo, and the Sydney Fremantle interchange debacle, I think, is probably the only word that you can use to describe that one. It staggers me that there are AFL officials that still don't know the rules. Talk us through this.
Yeah, we see highlighted here, these are the matchday officials. Right in the foreground there is Ryan O'Keefe, who'd been subbed off. Daniel Hanbury came on. This is where it's become to the attention that there was an issue. Now, what was the issue? Was the Swans put one of those two names, O'Keefe and Hanbury, in a wrong box. Now, that is a minor infringement, Das. Under the rules, it's a minor infringement. It should have been a fine handed to the Swans during the week, not a free kick as it was paid. And look, the free kick resulted in a goal, and it resulted in a goal to the Dockers at a time when they were really coming home hard in that game.
The AFL have put their hand up, so they got that one wrong, and we move on. Collingwood defeated Richmond by 21 points Saturday night. Wouldn't say it was the most convincing performance. It was a bit of a strange game to be involved in. One player at the moment not quite getting the job done is the man we're going to show a bit of vision of, Chris Dawes, who isn't clunking them the way that he has done in the past couple of seasons. Now, he had corrective eye surgery in the off-season. Maybe something you might consider, Damo, too, judging by your new specs you've got on at the moment. But is this a technique problem or something to do with his eyesight?
Well, you tell me. I'm looking at these bits of footage here. I'm saying technique, but are you saying it could be the eyes?
Well, he's had the corrective surgery. One of his great strengths has been that his contested marking is probably the thing that got him drafted in the first place and made him a really good player.
He's not in position ideally,
a couple of those last ones are really forgivable, but there was two or three. Maybe there's a bit of an adjustment. Sean Hampson had the same surgery in the off-season. I reckon he's marking them better than ever before, but we'll keep an eye on Chris Dawes and how he's travelling, but not quite flying the Pies just at the moment, but they've got a lot of young players.
Tearing out for a month, by the way, with the calf.
Yeah, news just come through today. That's a disaster for them, getting some of their experienced players back, and a calf injury in the 30s will be a significant one for him to get over. Now, we see things every week that we haven't seen before. Todd Goldstein, during the game, now I think just go and double check this. This is right in the fourth quarter. Todd Goldstein gets the hook from the coach. Come up into the box. I want to actually put you through your paces right inside the coach's box.
Didn't see Brad Scott doing that the previous week when it was about a kick in it against the Essendon team, did we? But you can do what you want to do when you're winning a match that easily. And look, coaches really want to get the information back to the players quickly, don't they? But the result or the margin was the reason that was allowed to happen then.
Not sure we're going to see that again in a real hurry, but we've got to show the melee from the weekend. We love a good push and shove and a wrestle. Let off a bit of steam. $15,600 worth of fines handed out today. $3,000 of which will go to Jake the Push-Up King. Is that about right, Damo?
Yeah, once this unfolded, you just knew it was going to be at least $10,000 worth of fines. In another era, it might have even been more. I mean, the messages got through. Poor old Rance, he copped twice by being the instigator of the melee and also getting involved in it as well. So they have to just keep finding these guys, because otherwise it would be happening a lot more than it is.
I understand the AFL don't like it, and there's ramifications down to junior football level and community and country football level, but it was a flat game up until half-time. Everyone in the crowd got excited. Collingwood came out and kicked 5 goals in 6 minutes on the back of that, and probably sparked the game into action. Speaking of country football, let's head down to Mulwala. Of course, Brendan Favola playing for Yarrawonga on the weekend. He doesn't ever have a quiet time, does he, Fev? Got a couple of punch-ons, got sent into the sin bin, kicked 7 goals from 14 marks. I can't help but look at Fev and feel sad, don't I? I think this is a bloke that still should be kicking 80 goals in AFL football. It's gone horribly wrong. He's ended up playing country footy, and he's going to deal with this every week.
Look, I agree with you, Darcy, it is sad, but you can also look at it in another way. He's actually giving back something. I know he's getting good money to play for Yarrawonga. It's in the vicinity of $70,000, and I think he's done well to get himself off the canvas. He was gone at various stages of last year, and look, he's got a TV career to speak of this year as well. He gets a lot of money for speaking engagements. I think he's having a go. I agree with you. It should be in the AFL, but it's not, and I think he's just moved on. And good on him. 8,000 people watched that game. Well done.
Good crowd that is in country football. Damo, great to catch up with you. Short and sharp here on AFL.com today, and we'll catch up with Darcy Barrett every Monday. We're going to talk about all the big issues in AFL. Don't forget to jump onto AFL.com.au for all the latest news and opinion. But from us, it's goodbye for now.